We truly hope that our audience has a lot to learn, engaged right here on this digitally interactive platform. If you've been to our lobby area, you know that we've created so much of interactive fun for you. We have some spectacular photo booths, our social wall. There are some amazing prizes to be won. I'd also like to encourage all of you to visit our partner booths. There's a lot happening at the NetApp booth. You can visit them, download their brochure, get a chance to win yourself a Google Mini. And of course, you'll also be entering a lucky draw and getting a chance to winning yourself a Blockhound BTW Pro earbud. And do be a part of their spectacular sessions that we've lined up in our agenda for you. Coming up next is a very special address on building next-gen data solutions, being responsible and sustainable at the same time. It is a pleasure as I welcome Mr. Matthew Hurford, Vice President, Systems Engineering, CTO, APAC, NetApp. We welcome you, sir.
Hello, and thank you for that warm welcome, Mishra. It's a pleasure to be here. It's afternoon in Sydney, but I think it's morning over there in India. And I want to talk to you a little bit today about next-gen data solutions and framing that in terms of responsibility and sustainability. So we're going to take a little bit of a look at what NetApp is doing in the marketplace, a brief overview of how we're delivering next-generation data solutions, and then also looking a little bit into the future and some of the challenges and some of the responsibilities. We are the custodians of data. If you work in digital, if you deal with data, it's our responsibility, I think, to make sure that our industry holistically is a little bit more sustainable going forward than perhaps it has been in the past. So let me start off with just acknowledging that, we have amazing partnerships with Intel. Our systems and solutions have been built on Intel for quite some time, and we thank them for their support and partnership throughout the years. But what is NetApp today? And when I talk to CIOs and executives, they often think of NAS. They think, oh, NetApp are those storage folks. They're nice people. We like them. We trust them. But they deal with storage. But we've been doing far more than that over the last 6 or 7 years. And we really are helping customers lead with data. We're helping organizations develop hybrid cloud strategies. We're helping organizations understand how they can develop applications faster. And we're helping them understand how they can leverage data to really differentiate their customer experience. And when we talk about all this digital and digital disruption, really customer experience is the differentiator we're driving. People want a simple application that they can use that's fully featured, but we understand as practitioners the complexity behind the scenes to deliver that simplicity is harder than ever. So what have NetApp been doing? We've been talking about a lot of things over the last 30 years of our existence, but the last 6 or 7, you may have heard us talking a lot about data fabrics. So what does that look like? So as I said, you know us for best of breed storage services, file, block, object. We're always in that top right-hand quadrant from Gartner. We have huge market share across the Asia Pacific region, particularly in India, where we're very dominant in the banking and financial services industry because of the capability we have around SAN-based workloads. But we've been doing far more than that. We've been layering on this idea of data analytics, data governance, compliance. I was just reading about the new data privacy laws that the Indian government is looking to introduce. We're very focused on making sure we have full classification of the types of data you're using across your landscape. Wouldn't it be nice to know that if your developers are developing in one of the clouds, perhaps in an S3 bucket, that perhaps they haven't secured that data correctly, proactively understanding that you have sensitive data in cloud storage or on-prem inside databases is one of the key things that we're focusing on, making sure we can give you accurate AI-driven analytics of your data across these landscapes. And then we're looking at the analytics, proactive problem resolution. Would you like to know that, the way you're running your systems is not best of breed and you could be squeezing out more efficiencies and saving more money? Integrating showback. We're also starting to build ML and ransomware protection into our operating system, not next to it, but inside it. So we can proactively start to take action if we start to see anomalies in your data usage. And then optimization has always been something from NetApp. I remember in 2008, 2009, when we first introduced deduplication with the first storage vendor to do that. And ever since then, everything we've done from the on-prem services to our new cloud services are built on this premise that we're always trying to optimize the service for you, always trying to get the right performance for the right price point, wherever you're looking to run your applications across a multi-cloud environment. And it's because we're taking more of an application-centric view. Traditionally, we looked at infrastructure and tried to make the applications fit. And NetApp truly believes that if you're going to build a new software-defined, agile data management environment across multiple clouds, you need to take an application-centric view and deploy those in the right infrastructure at the right time dynamically. And we call this a data fabric. This data fabric is layering on these capabilities on top of our pedigree of core storage services, but then also taking this application-centric view and making sure that we look at the workloads you're trying to run, understand what your business needs are. And in a nutshell, that is what NetApp has been working on over the last 6 or 7 years. And hopefully that surprised you a little bit. And hopefully you're thinking now, I didn't realize that they ran in multiple clouds. I didn't realize they had these advanced data services that I can literally toggle on and off across multiple cloud environments. So we've been living in this world. I'm sure there's some IT practitioners that have been around as long as I have. I used to be a mainframe system programmer. We kind of had this first wave of bare metal. We used to love naming our servers in this particular era. Then we moved on to the virtualization. And this is where my IT career really took off. I remember playing around with GSX VMware before ESX was a thing. And we lived this for a long time, and we still have a lot of virtualization technologies inside our data centers. But more recently, we've been living this cloud native wave. Deploying agile services across multiple clouds, really accelerating and bringing speed to our innovation. This is how we differentiate in a digital world. If I can get my applications to my customers faster than my competitor, I have a competitive advantage. But we're going to spend a little bit of time, because this is a keynote. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what's next. We've only got 15 minutes, so I'm going to touch on a couple of key things that I think are going to be important for the industry that may become part of the next wave of technology, and they all have a data-based angle. So sustainability is so important right now. So many customers talk to me about how they can run sustainable organizations. The environmental aspects of what we do in IT is going to be so important. Today, data centers consume about 2% of the world's power that we produce. But organizations are looking to understand how they can lower their carbon footprint. How can they be more responsible? In fact, it goes a little bit further than that, right? In fact, I know that organizations and people coming out of university are choosing who they work for based on these environmental and sustainability credentials. It's going to become incredibly important. The move to cloud, although not completely green, is a better option often than running on-prem. And I'll tell you why. When I talk to my friends at Google, they say to me, by 2030, we're going to completely offset the power that our data centers consume with green energy or carbon credits. They have the capability to, when they build a data center, make sure that they build a renewable energy source next to that data center. It would be wind, solar, hydro, to generate the power inside those data centers. So there's definitely a green angle to cloud, and they can often run with much higher efficiencies than we can on-prem. Most production VMware environments are really running at about 25 to 30% utilization. You wouldn't buy a cloud VMware environment and run it at 25% utilization. It will be cost prohibitive. You'll be looking to maximize the usage of that cloud environment. So a number of angles there. Like I said, who people work for, decisions for employees. I've got a partner in the UK where a customer chose not to work with them. They didn't like the diversity policies that they had as an organization. These things are going to become increasingly important in the world. People are going to be looking for, do you have good technology? Are you a good organization? Are you actually fitting into the new world and driving a more sustainable future for societies holistically? And then we see the governance of this, right? I've picked a UK example here, where along with financial reporting, the UK government is now going to demand environmental reporting as part of the way organizations run and the cadence of organizations. This is happening fast in EMEA. This stuff will come to APAC. And as I said, we work in technology, we consume significant amounts of energy, we have responsibilities, particularly when we start to look at the amount of data growth that's happening across our industry. And then we have the skills gap. There isn't a single organization I talk to who say, I would like to do things faster, Matt. I would like to be able to transform my organization faster, but I don't have the people. This is another sustainability challenge for us as organizations, as digital companies. We need to rethink how we train people. We need to rethink how we attract talent. Vendors need to play a bigger role in making sure that organizations understand how to bridge that gap from the ideas that we talk about, the slides we present, to making those things into reality. My son's 19, and he's studying a degree in IT. And in his first year, he's studying Java, right? And I sit here and I wonder, who needs that kind of language these days when we have all these low-code AI-driven technologies coming in? But I'm hoping that the skills they're being taught are going to drive the innovation and creativity. I don't think computer programming itself is that creative. I think it's the idea that we had that drives that creativity. So hopefully the young people that are coming up through university, they're going to fill this gap, this huge skill shortage, are going to be armed with that ability to be innovative and creative, because we need to make the platforms and the IT architectures we build capable of supporting that kind of innovation, because that is going to be incredibly important to us solving some of the challenges back to society that we're going to have in the future. Now, we spent a lot of time talking about cloud. I think, by 2030, I think cloud will be ubiquitous. I don't think we'll be using that term as much as we do today. I think it will become the normal, how we run IT. Most organizations are running multiple clouds. From my perspective, there are 3 buckets of IT. The first bucket is the problem bucket. It's legacy IT. It's hard to upgrade. It's hard to maintain. It's sitting in the corner of your data center. You really don't want it to be there, but it's running probably business critical applications. That's the problem we have to address. The second bucket is private cloud. These are true orchestrated, automated. We're driving the costs, driving the speed. You should be looking to run your on-premises environments as if you are a cloud provider to your business. And we help organizations understand how they can achieve that goal. Drive the costs out and spend the money on the third bucket, which is how you can build out new web scale, cloud native, probably container-based microservice architectures that are really going to start to drive that innovation and differentiate your products from your competitors in the marketplace. And then we talk about this edge. The edge for me, and we talk about this distributed cloud, this is becoming quite interesting. I think that you'll find that the autonomous vehicles have an awful lot of compute power in the future. When that car's sitting in my garage, why isn't it acting as an edge IoT device? How many mobile phones do we have across the planet that are now capable of perhaps being, tiny little IoT, maybe even an ML device? Because we have tools like WebAssembly, where it basically decouples the code from the architecture. So I can write code and deploy that code to run on anything with a chipset. Now we start to think about the power of how these distributed clouds and how much data we're going to be producing at the edge, which leads into this idea of tiny IT and tiny ML. These are very small devices. They have often no battery. They're often powered by Wi-Fi chatter. Now, these devices are already turning into ML devices. Who's noticed that whatever agent you're using, personal assistant you're using on your mobile operating system of choice, ever noticed they've got a lot faster? That's because things like Siri have now been put on the phone. You don't have to connect to the cloud to use that. I have a digital alarm clock. I basically talk to it and ask it what the weather's going to be like tomorrow, and can you set me an alarm to wake up? That is a single-use ML device that hears my voice and is able to perform that function. This is interesting because by the 2025, there will be more AI at the edge than there is in the core. And if we think of all the AI generating power we have in the cloud data centers, on premise, in the bit mining labs, we're going to have more AI chipsets at the edge, thinking, inferencing, giving us insights and improving, once again, that customer experience, but also generating huge amounts of data. Now, what does this all mean for data? Well, in 2010, we had about 1.2 zettabytes, and a zettabyte is 1 billion terabytes, to put that in perspective. This obviously is growing very, very fast. All these technologies, the adoption of cloud, the proliferation of edge-based architectures means that by 2025, not that far away, we're going to have 175 zettabytes. We're in the zettabyte era of data. Now, we talked about sustainability at the start and being good custodians. Today, it's using about 2% of the world's power. By 2030, the data centers, particularly the data in the data centers, whether it be the edge or the core or the cloud, is going to be using 8% of the world's electricity. Now, if I told you that of all the data we've ever created in the world, only 32% of it has ever been used. Let that sink in. 68% of the data the world has produced with all these devices proliferating, we're not consuming it. It's just sitting there. Often it's ephemeral. If it's at the edge, talking about those tiny devices, 70% of the data never makes it back to the core, never makes it back to a cloud. It sits at the edge, and very often it's not consumed. Now, we know that cloud adoption is increasing, so there is a good news story here in the fact that clouds are often greener than the data centers that we maintain. But how does that look if we look a little further into the future? Now we have a yottabyte of data by 2030. That's 1,000 zettabytes. That's a lot of terabytes. And if we put that in perspective and we think about our responsibilities for the planet, our responsibilities of being good citizens, our responsibilities to the future generations, think about what that means. If we go back to that amount of data that's not being consumed, at 68%, it uses more carbon dioxide than the entire worldwide airline industry. That's the data that we're producing that's not being used. So my call to action is focus on the innovation, focus on using data to drive customer outcomes, but be green, be sustainable, and think about the future. With that, I'd like to thank you. My name is Matt Hurford. It's been a pleasure.